Key, you played there. You know how rowdy that place can get and with the vibe it has. I always try to tell people it's the most like an SEC football game in the NFL. And I've been all around the league covering the Bears and the Packers, so I've seen, the vibe at stadiums, and there is something different about Lambeau. But you don't have the fans in the stands to bring that juice. And players have told me it's been tough this season to bring your own juice, right? And you're relying on your rah-rah guys. And that's a tough job. I know that sounds silly to say, but when you rely on that energy from the crowd to really elevate your performance, to get you hyped for a game, it can be tough to self-motivate sometimes. So I do think that there's incentive to have those warm weather teams, maybe the New Orleans Saints, maybe the Rams from out west, come to Lambeau Field. But these guys are more focused on getting that bye so they can be as healthy as possible for a deep postseason run.
I would trade the bye to them if I didn't have to go there to play. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's your LA showing. Your LA is showing right now, Keyshawn. How long have you been in New York?
It's different though. It's a different weather in Green Bay than it is in New York.
Jeff, we're about to get our first snowstorm, so we're about to see Key in live action.
And for those of you listening in the tri-state area, Key, just wait for the next 24 hours. If you thought it was bad right now, just wait till you see what's going to be like this time tomorrow. So we had some great conversation there with Jen, from a two-time MVP to a guy that's looking for another MVP. That would be going from Giannis to Aaron Rodgers, with the Pack ready to go on Saturday Night Football this week. And, of course, you can hear Jen and company this Wednesday morning on ESPN Milwaukee. Jen, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
I thought she raised a really good point, fellas, which is to say that Green Bay is the smallest market in American professional major sports in this country. I mean, Canada's Canada with hockey and the NHL, and the Toronto Raptors, of course, who are now coming stateside, as we know. But the Packers are the smallest market in American professional sports, so it seems to reason, if you want to tie them together with like a small SEC town with a rabid sort of feel, where the stadium is in a residential part of the neighborhood, as you know, Key, if you've ever been in Green Bay. I thought that was a really apt comparison she made, and you're right, it may not be home field advantage with fans, but weather is weather.
Man.
And whether or not cold weather teams have an advantage, it's a very fair question.
I want no parts of it at all. Look, I played there when it was -8, okay? So imagine we didn't even go out for pregame warm-ups. We stayed in the locker room. I went out and warmed up with Sean King for like 3 minutes. Sean was like, "Hey, dog, we got to go back in." I'm like, "Yeah, we do."
Sean, your old quarterback there in Tampa, and we should mention, Key knows this, for decades and decades, there was an old stat. It's since been broken, but it bears worth remembering. There was an old stat, Key, I'm sure you remember, that the Bucs used to be 0 when it was 40 degrees or lower, and certainly January in Lambeau, it's going to be 40 or lower for sure.
It is not fun, Jay.
We'll take your word for it.
I don't want nothing to do with that cold, Key.
That's why Jay played hoops. Indoors, baby. Let's go from A to Z.
From Dallas to D.C. and everywhere in between. From A to Z.
And from A to Z is brought to you by Redbox. Redbox has new movies at the box and streaming on demand. Don't miss Tenet, starring John David Washington, son of Denzel, and Robert Pattinson. Visit Redbox.com for all the ways to watch. So a day after his son, Steven, doubled down and essentially said, look, Mike McCarthy is going to be our coach, Jerry Jones essentially doubling down and saying, look, Mike McCarthy is going to be our coach. He said it on his weekly radio appearance on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. You know the deal. Every owner in the league has their own radio show, right? Here's the deal. Mike Greenberg, our Greenie, has his own radio show. This ain't a Stephen Jones problem. This ain't a Jerry Jones problem. This ain't a Mike McCarthy problem. This is an Ezekiel Elliott problem?
You know what problem Dallas has? Dallas has a Zeke Elliott problem. Zeke Elliott has been awful. And you can say it's the offensive line. And you can say it's the play calling. And you can say it's losing the quarterback. And all those things are legit. But when the chips are down, aren't your best players, your most valuable players, the one you flew down to Cabo to bring up and give all this money to, your highest paid players, aren't they supposed to be the one to carry you from the abyss? That's a whole lot of money. And another cautionary tale. You pay the running back at your own peril. And in this case, I think it has worked out very, very badly. Now, as they need, in my opinion, to hit the total plunger, hit the reset button. One of the things they got to figure out a way to do is get out from under their running back's contract.
Well, Key, this is par for the course.
What?
When Emmett held out, he paid him more than 25 years ago. He needed him. And when Zeke held out, eventually Jerry paid him too. I get what Greeny's saying, but this is standard operating procedure for Jerry Jones. Pay your big superstars.
Well, it is. And when you think about it, I understand what Greedy is saying, but at the end, Greedy has to understand when they paid Emmitt Smith, Nate Newton didn't get hurt. Larry Allen didn't get hurt. Eric Williams didn't get hurt. So Troy Aikman did not get hurt. And in these situations with Ezekiel Elliott, their team they can't even really field an offensive line. Like, I don't even know who their offensive linemen are. Like, who are they? Who are these guys? They're just bodies that's out there, and Zeke can't get going. I think when you look at it, the quarterback's gone, the offensive linemen are banged up. It's a mess. One thing he did say is they need to hit the reset button. I think they need to retool the offensive line and figure out how to get that group going before they address the Ezekiel Elliott situation.
I'm with you, Key. I think you recalibrate the offensive line, you recalibrate the defense, but let's be real, not having your quarterback, man. This year, a lot of guys are going to get passes. Mike McCarthy's going to get a pass. We're also dealing with COVID, by the way, in the midst of a pandemic. I know they're in a horrible NFC East, but this whole dumpster fire that people keep trying to do in the Cowboys, we know who the Cowboys are this year. Get ready for the hype train next year when we go into the 2021 season.
And I'll dive right back in really quick. I know you said dumpster fire, and we're in the NFC East. And people out there would say, well, the Washington football team certainly knows how to win. The Giants certainly know how to win. Washington got a defense. Let's not forget. And Washington has a hell of a quarterback in Alex Smith.
And Key, just to double down on what you said, and Greeny certainly has the right to his opinion, and that's the beauty of Sports Talk Radio. We always want to hear from you on the phone lines, on our Twitter feed. I would say if you would list the Cowboys' problems in order, 1 would be Dak, 2 would be the lack of a defense, as Jay mentioned, and 3, way down from those 2, in my opinion, would be Ezekiel Elliott. When you don't have a quarterback and a historically bad defense, I mean, who really cares about Ezekiel Elliott? They got much bigger problems than that. The College Football Playoff Committee selection has a bit of a problem, too. They're in a pickle. They need to explain something. Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, no big deal. Texas A&M on the outside looking in. But over the weekend, Florida had an inexplicable loss to LSU. They were more than a 23.5-point favorite, just about 23.5. LSU has had the worst season for any national champion, reigning national champion on record. They lose that game, yet they only fall 1 spot from 6 to 7 in the eyes of the committee. The committee chairman, Gary Barta, on that strange rationale that had Twitter buzzing last night.
Georgia was moving up, Florida was moving down, and they collided. And what I mean by that is one of the things that the committee talks about is head-to-head competition. So Florida did have the bad loss. They did beat Georgia. So then you have the conversation, where do Florida and Georgia fit, and does Florida stay ahead of Georgia? And when it came down to it, the committee looked at all the resumes. Florida stayed at 7 and Georgia at 8 because of what I just described. Florida beat Georgia. But the committee felt strongly, after a lot of conversation, that in the committee's opinion, Florida and Georgia are still a better team than Cincinnati.
So, Jay, I heard you while Gary was saying, I'm guessing some of the members of our audience did as well. You said, what? What? So what do you think?
How the hell does that make sense, Zubin? Just because they beat them in a head. They lost to LSU. Florida lost to LSU when they were a 20-point favorite. Georgia's only losses were to Alabama and Florida was ranked top 20 at the time. I don't understand the rationale of this. And also, let me take it one step further. And I know you've been on their hype train, but I don't understand how Iowa State is in this position at 8-2. How are they ranked above Georgia and Florida and Texas A&M when they have a loss at the beginning of the year to Louisiana? Like, I just, and I'm not saying that Iowa State isn't a good team. They are a good team, but I don't understand how the College Football Playoff Committee is evaluating these teams. And it seems like there's a lot of backdooring, there's a lot of shady stuff going on. I can't figure out the reasoning behind it. Maybe Keyshawn can help me with this. How can Iowa State be ahead of those teams? And actually, I don't even understand how you can have Florida still ahead of Georgia in this situation. I don't.
I have no idea why you just mentioned my name to bring me in on this mess. I don't get it. It's a waste of time. You got a bunch of lazy people in that room. They're just why don't you just make it the SEC championship and leave 4 teams in, 4 teams from the SEC? Why don't you just do that? Just put 4 teams in from the SEC because that's what you want to do anyway. I mean, I don't even know, like, seriously? Like, Iowa State is 8-2. You really think, as they would say, on any given Saturday, that Iowa State can beat Florida, even though Florida lost to LSU, a bad team, and was favored by 20-plus points, 23-plus points? Not a chance. You think Iowa State can beat Texas A&M? Not a chance.
Key, let's not bury the key lead here.
Not a chance.
Trojans are at 13th. They move up from 15th to 13th.
I don't want to get caught up in USC again today.
Okay.
Because RAD, I can't even, he might as well go back to Ohio and go, because it sounds like to me, he wants Ohio State to go to the championship and win it. Go ahead and all your little Ohio buddies you play golf with, call them and talk to them and deal with them. I'm just like, it doesn't even make any sense. It makes no sense.
Did you get the email yet, Key? Did you get the email yet from him yet, Key?
I'll share with you during the break emails and text messages. I did get it. It was not from the AD. It was from prominent people at the university. Just saying.
Uh-oh.
So once again, the final rankings will be released Sunday at